And welcome in everybody here to the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel and the Eagle Wakeup. Nathan King here, joined by Christian Clemente. We're here at Auburn's football facility on a Tuesday, as Christian, for the second straight year, they open up spring ball here at the end of February. So we got our first look here at the very early stages of the 2024 Auburn football team out at the practice field today. Had about a 15-20 minute viewing window, and some things were kind of changed up based on the schedule earlier in the week. We're going to talk to Hugh Freeze today. Now I'm going to get him on Thursday. So no comments from coaches or anything like that, but just kind of what we were able to observe. And, when we go out here for the first time, really in the spring, Christian, we're always trying to pay attention to the new guys and how they look out there. And
new guys and just initial eye catchers.
Exactly, yeah. Because, this is not, we're not even to install yet. I mean, this is, hey, get your feet under you. I mean, a lot of these guys, this is their very first college practice. But as we're coming out the door, Christian, it was what caught everybody's eye. No surprise here that Cam Coleman is a great athlete, and obviously you covered him at the recruiting level. One of the biggest dudes on the team in his first practice. I mean, it was almost hilarious how big he was compared to, the rest of the receiving corps, a bunch of juniors and seniors.
Yeah, no disrespect to the other receivers, but it's like you go out there and you look and it's like, okay, this is an NFL wide receiver.
Yep. And
the thing I always go back to is when Jason went to go watch Central practice like 2 years ago, and Patrick Nix, Central's head coach, was out there and he said, hey, I've got an NFL wide receiver for you out there, and he points out number 8, Cam Coleman. It was like that when you went out to practice today. It's like, there's an NFL wide receiver there for you. And watching him go through the drills, they were going through the drill where you had to kind of duck down to block a little bit. He was too tall for how they had the bar set up. And so the first time he tried to do it, he hit his head on the bar because he's too tall. And he figured it out, obviously, and adjusted. But it was just funny to see, and it clearly justified why he was Auburn's top-ranked player in the class, and the second highest-ranked player in Auburn program history in terms of 24/7 rankings. So.
Yeah, every bit of 6'3", 188 is what they have him listed at right now. Wouldn't be surprised if by the time we get to the season that he's listed a little bit bigger than that. We'll kind of just walk through the position groups, kind of just some basic takeaways. Speaking of newcomers, I thought it was interesting. At receiver, Marcus Davis had them split up into vets and newcomers. Bryce Kane, the other freshman, really fast guy to Mobile, he was with the returning players because he was present for bowl practices, and so actually his freshman compadre over there, Cam Coleman, was with the newcomer. Sam Jackson was the only guy I noticed on the practice field in a non-contact jersey. Yeah, I was on both sides of the ball. That's the Cal transfer, of course, who comes over, and he's going to be playing wide receiver. At quarterback, it was still Peyton Thorne. Obviously, Hugh Freeze.
It was the same rotation. Add Walker at the end.
Exactly. You add in Walker White, throws a great ball, really good-looking freshman. Talking about a good size, for a freshman player. There's a reason he's a really highly rated guy. He's a guy obviously you saw a lot. That's going to be something where could he be in play this season for the job? Absolutely. Right now, you're kind of, you're in a position where getting his feet wet, you're not trying to pressure him into it.
Yeah, right now you keep the same depth chart from last year where it's Walker, Peyton, Holden, Hank Brown, and then just toss Walker in. And then as spring goes on, let them compete a little bit more. Then you go into the fall, you really want to have it dwindled down to 3 or 2 at that point. So then you could see some movement if a guy decides to leave for the portal or whoever that may be. But for today, you just kind of get the feet wet, let them go out there a little bit, and then they were working with the running backs while we were out there, which was, again, the same rotation. I think Jeremiah Cobb was 4th.
It was, but T was 3rd. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
it's early. Yeah. It's day one. Nothing to really take away in terms of rotations and stuff like that. But obviously, they think Jeremiah Cobb can be a guy who can do a lot in this offense in his second season. On the defensive side of the ball, now you've got, in terms of coaching, DJ Durkin, a defensive coordinator, is over those linebackers, the inside linebacker group. Josh Aldridge is going to coach not only the Bucks, which they're Bucks again. Welcome back to a few years ago. The pass rushers are going to be the Buck linebackers. He's also got the defensive ends. So you kind of saw those groups working together. A big guy like Keldrick Falk is in there with a smaller pass rusher like a Brenton Williams. But something that you've been thinking they would probably do, Joe Phillips from right down the road at Tuskegee, he's coming in. He played inside linebacker when they were there in bowl practices. But I remember you at a practice for the bowl game saying, I feel like he's probably going to creep down to the edge at some point, and he was with the Bucks today.
That's always been a spot. That's where he's always kind of needed to be. He's too big to be a linebacker, and you need too much at the edge position in order to sacrifice him at linebacker. So I think that's his natural spot, and I think it's where he'll be the best.
Don't have a ton of depth right now. It's Jalen McClellan. No disrespect to Brenton Williams. He could be a guy who could definitely come along second-year player, 3-star kid out of Eagle Wakeup, but you've got Jalen McLeod, and that's your only returning production at that position. Jamonte Waller, top 100 recruit. They think he can do a lot of good things. So it makes you were kind of wondering whether you needed one more guy to fill in there. Joe Phillips makes a lot of sense. You have Vontrell King-Williams now, of course, gets promoted from his analyst position to take over the defensive tackles. That's an interesting group, though, because not a ton of size, I guess, there at the defensive tackle spot, and just not a lot of bodies. Really, you looked at the scholarship numbers. You had Bobby Travis, Jason Jones, and Trill Carter, the Texas transfer. They were with the nose tackles, and then at the interior defensive line spot, Gage Keys. I saw Zeke Walker working there.
Malik Blockton
as well. You had Malik Blockton, and then DJ Reed. Darren Reed Jr. is a guy that they think can maybe take a step there in year 2. And then the secondary is interesting. Of course, you get Charles Kelly now working with the safeties and the nickels. That's a group that's going to have a lot of turnover this season because of all the guys they lost from last year. They had, obviously, Kyan Lee and Keontae Scott you're going to be your top 2 guys at corner. That was no surprise today. But like we've talked about a bunch, right now there's just a ton of young options. It's going to be interesting to see how they sort through it the next few weeks.
We had a ton of questions about it on the board yesterday when we were doing a live chat, and everyone was like, how do you see the secondary shaping up? I don't really have an answer for you.
Yeah, especially at corner.
I mean, we don't today, obviously, because there's still a long time to go, but it's just a ton of young pieces. Who steps up? Yep. I listed through a bunch of names, and then someone was like, what about Antonio Kite? And I was like, I honestly forgot about him because there's so many young, talented guys. You just need to see who steps up. The interesting thing to me today was Jaron Thompson was very, very vocal, which you like to see out of he is a transfer, but he's a veteran, so he instantly steps up and is a vocal leader for this team, which is big.
Yeah, you saw him in there with Charles Kelly. Getting in. Honestly, I saw him helping out in a few drills. That's a really experienced guy, the transfer out of Texas. As we were leaving, you kind of got to look at maybe some offense versus defense. Again, I hesitate to say first team because it's obviously the first day. But guys they had thrown out there, you had Caleb Wood and Terrence Love at safety. No surprise there. Kind of went the experience route. Sly Smith was there at nickel, and he's the guy who played nickel last year in practice. Ron Roberts said he was going to move back to safety, but obviously that was a previous coordinator. What are they going to do with him now? And then no surprise, you had Kyan Lee and Keontae Scott, Eugene Asante, and Austin Keys at linebacker as well. And so just kind of some general observations from day one. Like I said, this is the first day. We've got a long way to go over the next few weeks.
You take it with the biggest grain of salt imaginable.
But it is exciting, of course. Year 2 of the Hugh Freeze era here in terms of what they're doing on the practice field gets underway here on a Tuesday. And so Thursday will be the big day. Go look out auburnundercover.com. That'll be Hugh Freeze's first time talking to us this spring, kind of getting things setting the table there for the rest of spring ball in the early stages. Talk to a bunch of players as well. So be sure to head over auburnundercover.com. We'll have that covered for you guys. Christian Clemente, I'm Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the War Eagle Wake Up. We'll talk to y'all soon.